so that the awareness will be increased, and then that's the way we do it. Kids are kids. With that, let's continue with our education session. Our first speaker, oh, George, welcome in. George, sit next to me. He might sit in my seat, that's all. George. All right. The first speaker, our Gina Markland. Gina is new to our club, and I think she's one of the folks who brought us this award. We got Beat the Clock Award for having more than 5 members rushing in and become members before the end of the year, the last one. So this is quite significant. I've never seen one before. With that, Gina is working hard on her communication manual. This is number 6, vocal variety. The title is My Mom, the Alzheimer's Patient. Please welcome Gina.
My mom, the Alzheimer's patient. And I think probably with having Steve Kelly with us tonight, we've got the up and the downside. Many of you probably know a little bit about Alzheimer's, but my mother was diagnosed with Alzheimer's about 10 years ago now, and she is about 89 years old. And as I have gone through this process of this disease with her, I've asked myself many times, why are you still here? In terms of, for the last 3 to 4 years, she has basically been confined to a wheelchair and a nursing home, and we were no longer able to take care of her. But I've learned a tremendous amount from her through this disease. And so sometimes when I ask that question, I think she is still here because we still have things to learn from her. And I don't know how many of you are familiar with Alzheimer's disease, but I will try to kind of explain a little bit about what happens to your brain with Alzheimer's in a nutshell, and share with you a little bit of the experience. As our population ages, the amount of Alzheimer's, the more and more we see people with Alzheimer's disease. Not everyone that ages has Alzheimer's disease. Some of us are more susceptible than other people are of that. However, in my own mind, I think part of what has happened is that we have learned how to keep ourselves older longer, but we haven't quite figured out how that works in the brain sometimes. And basically what happens with an Alzheimer's is that we have these synapses between cells, in which our memories and the things that we know and our language, all of those things go across the synapses between those cells. And what happens is we have this buildup of protein on those synapses, and the electrical forces that go across the memories and many of the things that the brain does no longer go across like they're supposed to. And so what happens is, and they don't know why exactly, whenever that protein builds up, and they're not sure exactly how it builds up or why it builds up, but it begins to kill the brain cells. And so when you look at a brain that is healthy, it's this fleshy, good-looking kind of organ. And then as the Alzheimer's starts to, or someone with Alzheimer's, many times what you will see is this blackened look in the Alzheimer's. And eventually, when the Alzheimer's progresses, your brain actually begins to shrink as it begins to kill more and more of your cells. And we just haven't quite figured out. We've figured out in some ways how to slow it down. I have seen studies where they have been able to reverse some parts of it, but it isn't anything that's come on the market yet. But we are making progress in this area. But because I've had the unfortunate opportunity to experience it, I kind of wanted to be able to tell a little bit of my mom's story. Because some of you may be faced with that, some of you The first time I ever noticed that there was something wrong with my mother, we had gone to a restaurant one night with some friends of theirs. I was the young person in their friends of older people. And we got ready to leave the restaurant. And we had taken a van because there were about 8 people with us. And we got in. And my mother did not know where she had left her purse. And she could not find it. Now, in a normal situation, I wouldn't have thought very much about that. But this time I could see and hear the panic in her voice because she couldn't remember. And for me, I might not think much about it. I've always lost my keys ever since I was 20 years old. But for some reason that day, I thought, something is wrong here. Something's not quite right. And my older brother still lives where my mom is still, in Asheville, North Carolina. And his sister-in-law is a nurse. I didn't think I'd let that pass. But eventually my sister-in-law and my brother came to me and they said, there's something wrong. We're afraid that Mom has some problems with her memory. Later I found out they had been at a card game one night at their friend's house playing cards. And all of a sudden she didn't know the numbers on the faces of those cards, or if it was hearts or diamonds. To give you some idea of what that's like. And so then we had the whole process of having to try to face the fact that she could have lost Alzheimer's, which was hardest on my dad. They had been married for a very long time. But eventually we did go, we did my thing, and yes, she was diagnosed with Alzheimer's. It's very hard to deal with. You realize that person that you know is slowly going to slip away from her, which we did watch her do. I can remember times when she didn't know who my father was. As he got sick, after Kate taking care of her for a long while, and he didn't act his normal place, she began to lose some of those memories. And eventually we did have to put my mother into a nursing home. And as she's been there, and I've gone to visit with her, and her memory slowly slipped away, there would be days when I would think, where have you gone? Because parts of her would remember things from time to time. I remember when my father was sick, and all of a sudden she looked at my brother-in-law, and she goes, if we knew we were going to be in this place, do you think we would have the courage to go there? Well, my mother couldn't hardly put 2 sentences together. But for somewhere in her memory for that day, she had tremendous cognition that she didn't normally have. And so what happens is the disease, sometimes the memory comes back, but then it doesn't stay. But eventually, your brain, as it continues to progress, becomes less and less. With her, she lost her ability to speak and put sentences together. But yet, even now, when she can't speak, the disease has gotten her to the point where now she actually has to be lifted into a wheelchair. She started to have problems with her knees, which we thought was her hips, because she had 2 hip replacements along the way. But eventually, because we couldn't find anything wrong, they decided it was the disease. The cells were more and more. But even today, when I look at her, straight dead in the eyes, just like I'm looking at Ron, I get this uncanny feeling that she knows something's in her. She doesn't know what I know. But I know that there's something going on with her. She will look me straight back dead in the eye. And inevitably to this day, if I ask her a question, she understands that I'm asking her a question. She can't answer it. She understands that. And so the many times that I've gone through and thought, oh, this is so horrible, sometimes there's solace in the fact that I do think there's something there. And I recently read a book about a stroke patient who lost her left side function temporarily and had her right side function. And in that right side brain function was a place of peace. And so my hope is that she is in that place of peace. And so my point today is just to share with you a little bit about the disease, because many of you